Hi folks, welcome to another flying video with Tony and I, where we flew our microlights on a fairly extensive trip beginning at the Koo Wee Rup airfield, which you can see here. We took off, headed south for the Western Port Bay coast with the San Remo bridge in the distance there, and that was our turn point to head down along the ocean coast, which you can see in the background there. We flew, which is just delightful, I must say, flying along this coast. We followed that all the way down to Cape Patterson, turned north-east for the Leongatha airfield, landed there, refueled, and then it was a flight over some fairly undulating country, to say the least, 30 k's north to Drouin airfield, stopped there for rest, and then into the sun all the way back to Koo Wee Rup, landing there in the late afternoon after about 185 kilometres. It was a brilliant day of flying, and the weather was very, very compliant in that we were able to make use of mostly tailwinds at differing altitudes, which was a huge advantage in helping us to cover such a big distance. Get the clock off the motor. Well, it's a bit fresh. Having the wing being so easily folded up due to the solid side struts is a huge advantage, and it means we can pop it into this shipping container and keep it well out of the weather. As you'll see when I wheel it around into the open hangar beside, all the aircraft in there are covered in cloth to try and keep off the birds, and their total disrespect for the aircraft hang it in there. You can see they're covered in bird droppings. There it is, all folded up, ready to have the wings unfolded. Here's Tony complaining about the cold.
Yeah, no, I'm not complaining, it's just free.
So that's where they sit, right in there. The process of assembling the wings starts with unfolding them and then getting the battens out. We usually spray them with silicone, which makes them slide into the batten pockets a lot easier and also helps preserve the batten pockets, as you can see that we're popping them in here. After I've got all the battens in, it's top surface and bottom surface battens, we put on the wing tips and then lift the wing up onto the rear mast, and that the front strut locks that in place. And at some stage we'll top it up with fuel. They take 18 litres of 98 octane fuel, which is good for about 2.5 hours flying time, depending on conditions, headwinds or tailwinds. After that we fix the cameras and instruments, making sure that the remotes for the cameras are working and that the instruments are turned on, allowing them to get a good GPS fix for altitude and position, which is critical for the ADSB or Automated Dependent Surveillance Broadcast instrument, which allows aircraft to see each other on a screen. In our case it's an iPad which we carry on an e-board, so we allowing us to view exactly where we are in relation to them and them to us in both height, position and speed. Then the engines are started and allowed to warm at just on idle for a few minutes. Then we turn them off and allow that heat to soak into the crankcase before we give them full revs on takeoff. So here we are, all suited up, everything's checked, and we've looked at the weather conditions, made our radio calls to let people know that We're about to backtrack on runway 09 for immediate departure. We also have a 7-litre external fuel bladder attached to the back of the seat there, securely attached I might add, which we're going to use to top up the tanks when we arrive at Leongatha Airfield. So here's Tony. He's accelerating down the runway, and I'll wait just 20 or 30 seconds before I set off to avoid his wake. In the meantime, I'll just go through my checks. Controls, all three, and clear. Helmet is done up, harness is done up. Loose stuff, nothing loose in here. On the correct frequency. Altitude is reasonable. Okay, let's give it the berries. We usually give pretty close to maximum revs for the initial rollout, and then once we get airborne, back off 200 or 300 revs to lessen the chance of any engine problems. But we always remind ourselves of the contingency plans we have in place in case we do have an engine out, either landing straight ahead or in the paddocks next door, or if we have the height, turning back. So here we go, heading down towards the coast. Climbing up to 800 feet, which is not too bad. Need a bit of lift just here. So you can see that it's a bit more of a murky day. It's the high pressure inversion pushing everything down. So we're going to climb up to about 3,000 feet, or between 2,500 and 3,000 feet, and fly direct to San Remo, and take advantage of the northerly winds up higher. Tony's already, looking at my Aeros runways here, I can see that Tony's already 500 feet higher than me. So he must be getting close to 2,100, let's find out. You must be getting close to over 2,000 feet, Tony?
2-2 at the moment.
Which is right, because I'm at 700 to 600, so that's pretty close. So now I'm starting to see a bit of cloud down there along the mountains. It's probably the slight northerly kicking up the moist air, and it's just condensing out, or it might be remnants of last night. So I don't think so. No, that's showing the inversion cap. And you can see Tony up there as well. Still travelling south. We're not that far from the bridge at San Remo now, which you can just see there in the distance. At which point we'll turn and make the run along the ocean coast all the way down to Cape Patterson in the distance there. And so, Tony, we're about to turn for the coastal run. The tide's obviously on the turn, looking at that boat down there, I think. Yeah, it is. All the yachts are facing back up into the bay, so the tide's on the turn. Tony's over the bridge now.
Yeah, I'm about to do a turn over the bridge.
If you look under the bridge You can clearly see the water pouring into the bay, and it really does roar through that narrow strait.
Alright, so here we go, running down the coast. Wow, Tony, the ground speed's picked up quite a bit already.
Yep, up to 82, 83 now.
I've flown down this coast a few times now and I never get tired of it. It's just absolutely magnificent. It's easy to underestimate the distance from the air, and that point down there at Cape Patterson is 27 kilometres away by coast. It's also the home of the Bunurong Marine National Park, which apparently is renowned for its early Cretaceous geology, that's about 125 million years ago. We're coming up onto the famous Punchbowl Road Pink Palace, which was built back in 1990 by a Melbourne-based Italian architect, Erman Schmecker. Quite the amazing design, to say the least.
I'm at your 7 o'clock and about 200 metres behind and probably 100 feet below you.
10-4.
Even though we can see our relative positions on the Oz Runways app on our kneeboards, it's good for the rear pilot to let the front know exactly where they are. It just makes flying a little bit safer. We're coming up onto Victoria's desalination plant, which came online in 2012. The Australian government entered into a contract with Aquashore to pay them $600 million a year, whether we get any water or not. And if we do actually require any extra water, we pay extra on top of that $600 million a year. Just past Cape Patterson along the Bunurong coast is the aptly named Eagle's Nest, which you can see down there, and just past that is a bay where we used to fly our hang gliders many moons ago. There's a car parked in the Takeoff, you can just see there. We used to fly there, soar back and forth and land behind where there is now a water treatment centre. One of my fondest memories flying here is flying with a huge ocean gull, just soaring back and forth with it, and it seemed to think that it was quite a bit of fun doing the same with me.
So this is a thermal that I'm catching now. Yes, there it is. So we're at 1,500 feet now, and that's going up like a rocket. Keep an eye on Tony.
thinking on it afterwards, I think what I encountered was certainly some thermal from the north, but also a cooler southerly sea breeze which was pushing in underneath the warmer north wind, carrying the thermals and creating a convergence.
Oh, 1700 feet, a couple of turns. Tony's somewhere, oh there he is out there. That was quite a strong thermal, Tony.
Having gained several hundred feet in that patch of lift back there, it's now time to set our eyes for the Leongatha Airfield to the north. And because we have somewhat compromised visibility flying towards the sun, the ADSB will be invaluable in helping us to identify any potential oncoming traffic.
Just going to check out this airfield if I can see it, Tony.
Okay.
Boy, there's some lift here.
Whilst we can land in most paddocks in an emergency, it's nice to know where the cultivated landing areas are, and for future reference we might be able to put down there for refueling or a rest stop or any number of reasons. We'd have to contact the owners, of course.
Can you see the air? First of all, can you see me?
No, I can't see you, and I can't see the airfield.
The airfield is dead ahead, and I'm 500 feet below you. So I can't see you at all.
Arriving at Leongatha Airfield, you can already see that Tony's landed on 2-2, and he'll do a right turn up on 1-8, which is that arrow's indicating there, and turn into the taxiway. Here I am on final, or turning on final rather, for 2-2, and I must say that when I land here at Leongatha, because the airfield is so wide by comparison to Koo Wee Rup, it's a little disconcerting when I get down low, because I think I'm going a lot slower than I actually am. But here I am, coming in now, easing out gently, aiming for the end of the runway, and we're down. Then I'll do that right turn the same as Tony did, backtrack on 1-8, and then turn in on the taxiway, which is coming up now. And those lines there, the broken line side is the runway side, on the other side is the taxiway officially. So once you get past that, you can make the call that you're clear of all runways, and letting any other aircraft know that the runway is free from you at least. That arrow is pointing to the fuel bladder which we carried with us. We'll now pop that 7 litres into the tanks, and that'll help us get across to Drouin and all the way back to Koo Wee Rup. So we've got the fuel in. Here we are, we're coming up to the demarcation between taxiway and runway. You make a stop, check, make your calls, and now we're out onto the airstrip. And because we're so small, we don't need to backtrack it. We just take off within 30 or 40 metres and we're away.
So we just departed from Leongatha. Yeah, okay, now this is going to be quite a bit of tiger country to get across, that they call it. So we've got quite a lot of lift around and sink, which is associated with the lift. But the managing to climb at an average of 200 feet a minute despite that. Oh, well, that's 600 feet up there. So that's where we're headed for.
What we refer to as Tiger Country are areas where there are very few landing options, as is the case between Leongatha and Drouin. But as a instructor once said to me, you can land anywhere once. But as you can see, there are not too many landing options down there. Anyway, we got over this, and it wasn't long before we were looking at the Drouin Airfield, which is coming up about now. And there it is, just down there. A nice big airfield, and quite a contrast to Koo Wee Rup, and there it is there. I'm coming in on final, just getting myself lined up. And the same thing again, looking down the end of the runway, easing out until we just touch down nicely. Despite being in operation for some 40 years, just recently there's been a move to try and get it closed down because the recent arrivals to the area have been complaining about the noise. Personally, I don't think they've got too many grounds for complaint. If you bought a house next to a highway, you wouldn't try and get the highway closed down just because it was a bit noisy. But there you go. Aside from the recreational benefits of having this airfield here, it is also an invaluable base of operations for any emergencies requiring some sort of air assist, be that police, medical or firefighting. Anyway, after a short break here, we taxied out onto 09 for the trip back home to Koo Wee Rup, some 30 kilometres to the west. The whole day had been brilliant, with very little concerns about headwinds, and this last trip was no different. If you glance behind me on that little dam there, you can see that there's virtually no wind lines on the dam. If anything, there might be very slight subtly. So it was a very pleasant trip back. With Tony leading the way, we climbed up to just under 2,000 feet and just enjoyed the unrivaled views that you get from these little microlights. In the distance there, you can see French Island, which is what we flew past on the way down south some hours earlier. And as you can see, there's hardly a bump in the sky, unlike some other times we've flown back from here closer to midday, where the relatively light wing loading of our aircraft means we feel every bump in the sky. And all you can do is correct what nature's throwing at you and hang on and enjoy the ride.
So there's Tony over there. So it's been a really nice flight. We've got 10 k's to go out of our 180, landing at 2 airports other than the one that we fly from. Alright, so I've got Mark out over here.
You can see Tony in the red and Mark in the yellow circle. He's about to turn base final for 09.
Traffic, Microlight 6351, turning base, left base 27, Koo Wee Rup.
Despite pointing Mark out in the previous video clip, I hadn't actually sighted him up to this point, so I was looking everywhere for him. But it does prove the value of radios when you've got multiple craft in the circuit area.
Correction, Koo Wee Rup traffic, that is not 27, that is 09. So Koo Wee Rup traffic, Microlight 6351, left base 09, Koo Wee Rup traffic.
Wondered why I couldn't find you.
I have you in sight, but I don't see Tony. Tony, I don't see Lawrence, one of you.
Tony is on your left now and he's above you.
On downwind for 27 left.
And now Tony, highlighted in the red circle there, is on final for 27 or 270 degrees bearing, and he will be landing at ever such a slight southerly, so he will be crabbing in down that runway, keeping the speed on, looking to the end, And you can see down there now that you can already see that he's got the wings slightly turned to the south to counteract the breeze pushing him to the right as we're looking at it now. There's a more pronounced crab angle there. And now it's my turn. So just reminding myself to keep the wheels straight, keep the speed on, look down towards the end of the runway, and hold off for as long as I can. And by that I mean just keep the aircraft floating along to settle down as gently as I possibly can, rather than flying it onto the deck. Fly it as far as you can down the end of the runway, which is what we're doing now. Slowly pushing out, pushing out, pushing out. Could push out a little bit more, but gentle enough landing as it was. And we're down after a brilliant 185 k's. You can see the crosswind there and the windsock that's behind. And the reason I'm laughing is because I nearly took Ben's head off as I was taxiing past the boys.
Koo Rup 6351 left base 27. Koo Rup, traffic.
Koo Wee Rup traffic, right, Microlight 6965, clear of all runways. Koo Wee Rup. Well, that was alright. It landed on the post on the upwind side and that sort of drift across, and it seemed to work quite well. Alright, a great flight and really enjoyed it. There's Mark coming in. Alright, see you later.